to quote your old buddy Brian Kelly, when he's asked about expectations at LSU, he seems to lean in the direction of, he always goes back to, well, the roster's not where we expected to be down the road. We're still filling it in. We took over a mess. We took over a roster void of talent, void of depth, and we're still filling it out and getting it to where we need it to be. And once you start to bring up the weather, as I did, and then you start to give us some context to that and how you prepare the roster for a big game against a big opponent in those conditions, I think, okay, where does Notre Dame stand in regards to where you would want them to be? Obviously, Brian Kelly turned over a pretty good roster over to Marcus Freeman a couple of years ago, but is this a roster where it needs to be overall from a depth standpoint?
Depth standpoint, absolutely. I mean, I was actually talking about that on the show today, Mark, is you look at Brian Kelly in year 3 and Marcus Freeman in year 3 and how much more of this roster is guys that he's brought in compared to what Brian Kelly had in 2012. There was still a very heavy, Charlie Weiss recruit influence on that class. And part of it is just the changes in college football since then. I mean, Brian Kelly couldn't go to the portal and get a Riley Leonard and a Chris Mitchell and RJ Oben and Rod Hurd and players like that. They had to say, okay, well, we're down a corner. We're not great at corner. I didn't inherit a great corner situation from my predecessor beyond some guys that were vets. Can't go to the portal and get them. I got to move Kavari Russell over there and get him ready to go. You had to kind of build it from within. And Marcus Freeman has taken advantage of that. They've had 2 very good sized and talented recruiting classes in 23 and 24. Notre Dame has, I believe I counted 8 true freshmen in their 2 deep, basically in their depth chart today, and a lot of other redshirt freshmen. You look at the offensive line, they've got 1 true freshman starting on the offensive line, and they've got Sam Pendleton, who's a redshirt freshman, second-year player, and then 3 guys who are redshirt sophomores. But the depth behind it is very good. You've got Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler, Chris Tarrick, Sullivan Absher inside. So there's Joe Otting, there's great depth there. And if your tackles struggle, you've got Tosh Baker to rely on, who's got 4 career starts. You've got Gerby Lambert, who's a guy that is a 5-star recruit coming into Notre Dame. So even up front on the offensive line, where there's a lot of concerns about the youth and inexperience, it is a very deep group. And same with wide receiver. I don't know if they've got a number 1 guy there, but I know they have a lot of guys there that are talented and good football players. And it's true everywhere. You can lose a guy like Cam Hart to the NFL, and you've got Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey stepping into battle, and you've got Leonard Moore coming in to compete there. So they're at the point now, Mark, where it's reload mode. And in Brian Kelly's defense, the reality is he did inherit a much different roster at LSU than what Marcus Freeman walked into at Notre Dame. I understand all that, but he's always going to kind of have that mantra. But Notre Dame didn't have to completely rebuild the numbers. So as they went out and recruited, they were adding on to what was already there. And they've also, to the point where they've kind of funneled some guys out of the program this last couple of years because they've been able to go out and get better players. And that's something that the high school recruiting and the portal's really done for this program.
Yeah, the depth situation, which leads us into this question. So, of course, Joe Alt onto the Chargers as a first-round pick. And then the injury that was talked about more so than any other injury probably during this entire training camp across the nation was at left tackle as well. So size up the situation along the offensive front and the weaknesses and where you think Notre Dame has been able to maybe fill the gap and what they need to do there in terms of the offensive line shuffle.
I thought Mike Elko had a great comment on that today during this press conference. He goes, listen, if a freshman's playing offensive line for Notre Dame, it means he's going to be high. He's going to be a high draft pick in a few years. And to a degree, there's some truth to that. But this is in the last true freshman offensive lineman that started at Notre Dame was Joe Alt. He was thrust into the starting lineup. The guy that they started that year off was Blake Fisher. He was a true freshman starting offensive lineman, but it's never ideal, right? There's certain positions, Mark, where I honestly just don't care about experience. I don't care about experience at running back. If you can play, you can play. I don't care about experience, but at receiver. But when you talk about offensive line, experience does matter more to me. So there's this unique balance that you have to have if you're going to evaluate properly this offensive line. You can take the stance of, hey, it's all about the talent. And okay, that's true. Emil Wagner's a very talented player. I gave him a 5-star upside grade. And Anthony Knapp is a very talented player. I gave a 4.5-star upside grade too. Same with Sam Pendleton, same with Billy Stroud, same with Ashton Craig. These are all very talented players. But it's also a position where experience matters more than any other position on offense outside of quarterback. Those two are right up there. And the experience matters for two reasons. Number one is obviously the experience of playing. You know what to expect. You've seen all the looks. You've seen all the stunts. You know how to read certain things. When an defensive lineman's lining up this way and his body's tilted a little bit this way, you know that means he's going to do this, where a younger player doesn't have those nuances that a veteran player would have. It's the experience of playing together. Offensive line, more than anything else, is like a dance, right? It's like a symphony. You've got to all be playing the same note at the same time. It's all got to kind of, the timing's got to be perfect. If you're a person playing the clarinet or person playing the saxophone is off, everybody in the building knows that person's off. The timing is off, right? It's the same thing here when it comes to offensive line. If your left guard is off when it comes to the timing of what he needs to do, whether it's working the second level, back blocking, whatever the case may be, everybody's going to know it because you get exposed on the offensive line. And so that's another level of experience. And the other part of experience is grown man strength, right? I mean, the older you are, the stronger you get, the more you have sort of that grown-up strength. Why do they say you shouldn't have NFL players playing against college players? Because there's just a different kind of strength. And so that factors into it as well. So which side of that debate wins on Saturday night, Mark? That's going to be the question. Does the talent take over for Notre Dame, the athleticism, the length, the ability to go out there and run the football? Or is it going to be more about the experience or the lack thereof? Which is the talking point coming out of the game? Boy, that's a really talented offensive line, or boy, those young guys, they got a long way to go. I think that's going to have, more than anything, the biggest impact on how this game is going to play out this weekend.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.